Part of the vision for Third Root back in 2008 was to do holistic healing at the intersection of social justice, and now that's much more of a common practice now, but at the time it was really carving some space for that. To return holistic healing modalities to the people, having seen, acupuncture be fairly unreachable for most people, yoga, all the modalities that we came to offer. And then lastly, to do the work internally, right? Knowing that we could create a space and have an institution that we invite the public into, and also from the very beginning, we were doing workshops with one another on anti-oppression and to learn how to be in solidarity with each other, which is such an ongoing process, right? Because the world is not one of justice yet.
We are born in this space and place to be joyful, to be whole, to be wholesome, to be healthy, to be vibrant. And I believe that that is our right as human beings. Unhealthy energy can only produce unhealthy results. And so any part of us that's out of alignment with who we have a right to be, or who we were born to be, is going to disturb everything about how we move in the world. And that hurts. And as they say, hurt people hurt other people. Hospitals looked very different in the African American communities than they did in other communities. Services were different, schools were different. So I've always had an excitement to work in spaces where parity and justice were at the top of the list.
After 13 years of offering healing services to the local Flatbush community and those most impacted by systemic inequality, Third Root lost its lease. The current business cannot shoulder relocation costs on top of existing financial losses.
It's just also time for them to figure out how to not continue to take risks with tenants who may or may not be able to pay the rent. We're in a good place, sort of in a good place now, and could probably afford to pay the rent, but the decision has already been made. Before the pandemic, we were struggling a lot financially, but we still wanted to stay open, and we stayed open, and we pushed through all of the barriers that kept getting in the way.
Even at the top of that sliding scale is something that could be affordable regularly. And a lot of these practices are most effective when you use them regularly. Having access to acupuncture and massage, not as extreme luxuries or things that you use in case of emergency, but as ways to maintain your health.
These practitioners, they deserve the world, and so I wouldn't want to try to bargain anything, but it's just not something I could afford to give, So even though they always had sliding scale, there were times that I just couldn't get treatment. But when I had the when they started the fund, I was like, oh, now I can choose something based on my needs. third root is like the cushion on the margin. Like third root is that space on the margin that lets you just like let me just have a little bit more ease, a little bit more care. Just the fact that someone would use their expertise to be so focused on ways that the little ways that these stresses are affecting me. Like, I'm the first generation of women in my family who doesn't have to clean someone else's house to make a living. So I'm starting from like a little bit behind the line here, but I can get acupuncture in third root. What? There was just one day when I was like, I do not feel comfortable stretching in front of these people. I do not feel comfortable like reaching in certain ways. I'm not like opening my chest and doing certain movements. I feel really self-conscious, and I'm definitely being judged.
You don't actually have to be any particular sort of way to be welcome here. And I think that is very unique in places that purport to be wellness spaces. I think the idea is that you should be well to be welcome, or that you should be a particular body shape to practice a particular modality. I think the practitioners here actively welcome people to not be. Starting with that presupposition that a space is oriented toward a collective good, well, necessitates a collective decision-making process that makes things maybe slower, but generally more equitable. And that shows up in the sort of classes that are offered and the types of services that are offered, and I'd say in the most pronounced way, and the people who choose to offer their services here.
What we learned at Third Root in the most rapidly gentrifying neighborhood in Brooklyn, in Ditmas Park, was that we are such a contribution to community that without ownership, we ultimately contribute to our own gentrification out of a space. We bring value to neighborhoods, and that ultimately values the properties, and that means rents go up, and that in the future iterations of work, having owned space, having land, having places that we are able to own the equity in will mean that we don't get displaced over time. And that was one of the pieces of the story of our closing.
Maybe it's unique to living in Brooklyn in this part of time, but I don't know if I really expect good things to stick around anymore. But they do come and go.
It takes your breath away. You know, it was hard, it's painful, it continues to be. But you know, everything has a lifespan, and this has been the lifespan of Third Root. And so, although it's hard to let go, it's the reality, and we all have to face, you know, all of the realities of our journey.
What I've learned in my later life in Third Root is about how we're part of a legacy, and that legacy is this ribbon that goes way behind me, and I see going far in front of me too. You know, it's the legacy that Julia talked about, and Makiba. It's that legacy that makes the connections between healing that's people's medicine, that isn't property of anyone, that is open to everyone by design, and to speak that truth. And it's also the legacy that allows that to continue in so many different ways.
We thought about these deep roots that were planted, the taproot that Third Root was envisioned as 13 years ago, and the dandelion that's graced our wall, that now we're in the moment of seeds, of being that seed, that dandelion that people blow on to make a wish.
Although we're closing, I walk away knowing that we impacted a community, and that Third Root will always live. And my hope is that anybody and everybody who wants and believes in justice will, pick up the torch and run with it. And so that's where I am. May young people see this as a way to walk in the world and to know that this is the way we're supposed to live, and it's okay to struggle, but struggle toward the greatest good that we can possibly offer.